You're listening to Great Love Media.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
The Great Love Debate. It's the Great Love Debate.
Hi again, everyone. It's Brian Howie. Welcome to The Great Love Debate, the world's #1 dating and relationship podcast since 2015. So we spend a bunch of time on this show, and I have spent a bunch of time in my professional life talking about and diving into fresh starts and new beginnings and second acts and hitting the reset button and how it's never too late to make a change or start again when it comes to really just about anything. Where you live, who you're with, what you do, and most importantly, how you live your life. Especially for me, for men, it takes a long time for men to grow up. It takes a long time for them to discover who they are and to be confident in who they can be and who they can be with. And that is not an excuse for them. I'm just sort of laying it out there. I know that's really frustrating for women to hear, and it's a frustrating thing for women to deal with. But it's a frustrating process for men, too, knowing that, I don't know, if you can just get over the hump or break through to the other side, happiness and prosperity and clarity and all of life's pleasures can hopefully be there for the taking. But it isn't easy, and not only does it take a long time to happen, it doesn't always happen. But I have someone with me today for who I believe it did happen. He has a very circuitous and complicated journey, and he has an interesting tale to tell, and I know the ladies like to hear from a dude besides me around here. We don't have enough dudes besides me around here. He is the author of the 1 Week Relationship Confessions of a Serial Monogamist. He claims it's a novel, but it's more of a thinly disguised memoir. And we actually went to college together, and I haven't seen him in a long time. It was many, many moons ago and many, many miles from here. Greg Kelly, how are you?
Thank you for having me, Brian. It's a true pleasure to be on your show.
Yeah. Is that a fair way to sort of sum up men in general and you in specific, that, you know, it sort of takes a while to find who we are and what we want and sort of get going? A lot of fits and starts?
Well, I would like to add to that by saying I think what takes a long time is for men, and probably women as well, to realize who is the kind of person that they are really looking for. You could be married to somebody for, over 10 years, and that still doesn't mean they were ever the right person for you.
Right.
And until you get out there and cut your teeth and make some mistakes and learn from those mistakes, you won't ever truly understand what is like the number one thing that you need in a relationship. And when we get to that point, I'll tell you what that was for me.
That's a good point. A lot of people have trouble, especially when you're in a relationship or in a marriage or have children, sort of acknowledging, I may have made a mistake here. I may be making mistakes all along to get to this point. There may be another direction I can take. There may be changes I can make. It's tough to admit that to yourself, and it's certainly tough to have that conversation, right? When did you start questioning your approach to life? Was it slowly over time, or was that some people say I woke up in a ditch one day, or was there a light bulb moment, or was there I think I have to start doing things differently or better?
Well, I don't think you ever start questioning what you're doing until you start running into hard times. Now, in my first marriage, I was married for 16 years the first time. We had 2 children, and we ran into some financial difficulties because the industry that we were in pretty much collapsed, just like what's happening right now with the restaurant business and COVID-19. Those aren't things that you can ever prepare for, and you don't start realizing what is missing in your relationship until you're both kind of up against it. You've got 2 kids. You start realizing, maybe we're not in this for the long haul the way that we thought, because otherwise we'd be pulling together instead of constantly being at each other's throats. So after we moved to another state, Nevada, Las Vegas specifically, We were able to rebound. We were able to get back into a good business. I started a personal training business up there, and it took off right away. So we were out of the woods financially for a while. However, the things that we had learned about each other as far as where we were not compatible, that never went away, and it just kept getting worse. And then ultimately, I had to decide to do something.
But it's 16 years into it. How long into it were you thinking? Was it always, or was it there was a trigger and it sort of changed your perspective?
Well, my first wife separated from me within 3 years, so this wasn't like one-sided. And that probably would have been the time to say, because that was before children, maybe we made a mistake here. However, because I had been raised with so much, Judeo-Catholic guilt, the concept of getting a divorce was just not something I was willing to concede. So we both made it work when, the writing was on the wall all along. We just figured, let's just keep going a couple more years and see if it gets better. Let's pop out a couple of kids and see if it gets better.
I know that.
And you know what? That's just stupid.
That's a common thing, though. Let's have a kid to save the marriage. Rarely does that work, and then you have another life to deal with in that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So after 16 years of you finally get divorced, or 16 years after you married?
We officially separated at about 14. The full divorce took 16. And then I moved out and I started pursuing my own life, as did she. And, that's very hard on kids. You're not even officially divorced, but you're both, with boyfriends and girlfriends. It was just awful.
But it's a long time to go without dating. 14 years or 16 years. And then you have to get back out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That was a real culture shock for me. I was like the proverbial deer in the headlights. I didn't know what I was doing. I had never been on a dating website because they didn't exist back in the early 90s. And so it was just kind of the blind leading the blind. And I just couldn't get over how naive I was and how like stubbornly old fashioned I was in terms of, I thought I was going to go on my first date and meet the next woman I was going to marry. And so, you have to have about 100 of those before you realize that's not going to happen.
No, I think people get disappointed quickly. I think they're like, I don't understand why, within a handful of dates, I'm not falling. Because your pattern is I was in a relationship for a long, long time. And somehow a small part or a large part of your brain needs to or wants to get back to that. And dealing with new people, new personalities, new desires, whatever they want. Not everybody's aligned in that. Even if two people probably could get along, what they want is not necessarily at the same place.
Yeah, getting along, if that's all you have going for you, that's simply not sustainable.
Yeah.
Okay, so the secret sauce that I finally realized was missing in our relationship, and this is not a knock on my first wife or anybody else I've ever dated. I think two people have to be like intellectually on the same level, and that doesn't mean one person's dumb and the other person's smart. It just means that you have common intellectual interests and, the types of things that motivate you to have discussions about are similar. And if you don't have that, you're wasting your time.
That's a good point. People underestimate how big a part banter and small talk and curiosity and questions and answers that a couple has in a relationship matter. And that's a good point you made. It's not about being even having the same perspective. It's not even about having the same intelligence level. It's about what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And do we share common interest, and can we keep the ball moving forward? That's a good point. Couples don't often have that. Because they don't come up there, they look at other things. They look at, will they be a good provider, which matters, or is this person attractive? That matters. What will they like to have kids with, and do they have a good job and all that? But the other stuff, which is sharing interest and being able to have conversations and being able to share space with each other. It's underrated. So you go back out there dating, not to fast forward into what we'll get into in a second, but how frustrating was that for you that you didn't understand the secret sauce, or you didn't sort of have a grasp of it? Was it just one failed relationship after another, or was it one failed date after another?
Well, it was a little more complicated than that because when I first went out, being the naive person and the honest, ethical person that I was at the time, I thought, you know what? My situation is what it is. I'm not going to try and hide anything from anybody. So I would go out on my first date, and the first question would be, so when do you get divorced? And I said, well, we're not divorced. We're separated, but there's no hope for reconciliation. And that was pretty much the end of the date.
They don't trust that.
They don't trust
Nor
that.
should they.
Nor should they. So there was only one thing left to do. Lie.
Oh. Or get divorced.
Well, no, I couldn't.
You couldn't speed that up.
No, I couldn't speed that up.
Okay.
It was as contentious as it was going to get, and it was going to be as painful for me as it could possibly be made by.
So it was either not date,
right?
Find somebody who was happy with you saying I'm separated, which is a small pool, or hide the truth.
Right. So lying just seemed like the lesser of the three evils. Mm-hmm. So, and then ultimately I wound up getting into a relationship with somebody based on a lie. And at some point in time, I said, I can't really live like this anymore. So I told her the truth, and we stayed together. Now, looking back, I wished she had dumped me at the time because that was another year and a half of wasted time. Mm-hmm. But no. So, and then.
But so the lie was, I'm divorced?
Oh, I'm divorced, yes.
Weren't you still going through sort of a battle? How did you cover that?
Right, but I was able to keep that. We didn't live together anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, I had my own place. She lived in the original house. And so I was able to keep, the legal stuff under wraps enough that it was never going to. Mm-hmm. Yeah, unlike today, where you can go on literally any court website in any state, and see what the status of somebody's divorce life is, or bankruptcy, or anything else, you couldn't do that back in the mid 2000s. Mm-hmm. That's about the time period we're talking. And so, and that particular relationship was on again, off again, on again, off again. Both had dating profiles up there, to make the other person jealous or to say, I'm done with you. It didn't matter. It was just a huge mess. And then ultimately we got married.
Oh, ultimately you get married.
Yes.
And how long were you married to her?
30 days.
Oh, is that a Vegas marriage?
No, it was legitimate, but it was ultimately annulled. And so, from a legal standpoint, an annulled marriage never occurred. I mean, you did say I do, and you did get married in front of a, whatever, justice of the peace. Yeah. But in the eyes of the law, it didn't count.
So you got out of the second one a lot quicker and easier than the first one.
Right.
Okay. Then you go back out there again.
Right.
Same approach?
Same approach, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd like to emphasize is that, I was never interested in just being like a serial dater. Mm-hmm. My goal was always to meet somebody and then become monogamous. I didn't want to have stuff going on the side and then ultimately, hopefully, leading to marriage and children.
And you didn't find that most of the pool was similarly aligned in that desire? Don't most people want that?
No.
What do they want?
They just don't. No, what they want?
Well, I think a lot of divorced people don't because they're like, I don't want to get back to that, or I had that. But I think, a majority of people who haven't gone through that still hope for that. No, I could be wrong.
Honestly, I think I've got enough experience to say, from my perspective, I didn't see that.
So what did you see?
What I saw was, a lot of people that wouldn't even know if that's what they wanted because